Yeah,
we've done it. We're live.
Sauce! Hey everyone, welcome to Go Live. That just chucked me in the deep end there. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We have a sick show for you today. Sorry, I can hear my voice back. Yeah, thank you. We're going to swim in the sauce, and you know what the deal is now. You know what the format is. If you happen to be someone who hasn't been to the show before, very quickly, let me just introduce what the show is about. I'm Gaz, co-founder of GameOnDaily. This show is brought to you by GameOnDaily.com, which is a news aggregation gaming platform where you can get all your gaming content pulled in to one sexy place. Joining me is the co-founder and co-host of GameOnDaily and Go Live, Asa Walker. How you doing, sir?
That's me. I'm good, Gaz. Really, really well. Really, happy to be here as every week. Awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. It really shows on your face.
Beaming excitement.
Jeez,
all right. Joining us again is a gentleman who always puts a smile on my face. Thank you so much for returning to the show. He is a member, and I'm not going to do his long trademark style introductions because only you can replicate that, not me. Lord Cognito of the Iron Lords. Thank you so much for joining us, brother. How are you?
Doing good, man. With the Lords of GameOnDaily, always a pleasure. When you threw up the bat signal, I knew I had to be there. You got Jeff in the building. I see Dodge chilling. My man is up in here. Oh, man, it's going to be a fun show. Man, thanks for having me. Love what you guys are doing and bringing the community together. Great topics. I'm very excited. Let's get it going, man.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Thank you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Last but certainly not least, a guy who had to slide into his DMs the moment he announced that he's going to be doing podcasts, and you can tell he's a little bit tired, but we're going to get him energized. The source. Guys, he's not sponsored by L'Oreal, but he's definitely worth it. Jazzy Jeff, a.k.a. Jeff Grubb of GamesBeat. Absolute honor having you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll perk up here pretty soon. We'll get energy going. As soon as you bring up some good topics, I'll be ready to go.
Okay, that's no pressure on me then. But no, I won't do it. I'll do it. Thank you so much, everyone in chat. Please be civil in the chat. Isma, thank you for becoming a GameOnDaily Elite member. You are a legend. Thank you so much. We will be delivering a lot more sauce so you get your bang for your buck. Everyone in chat, please be civil, but I will try my best to read all your super chats. Smash that like button if you're enjoying it already, but maybe you want to wait till the show has actually kicked off and pass judgment then on us. So this week, it's very similar topics to last week because something that's been dominating the industry has been Xbox. It's Bethesda's acquisition, but this week the slant is more on Game Pass. A lot of industry focus is on Xbox Game Pass. It's been making quite a lot of noise actually, and you may have seen my video where I got a call from Colt as he told me that
I was dying. Good.
Outright, that's actually very realistic rendition of what actually happened. But Outriders got announced as a game that's coming to Game Pass day and date. It's a third-party title. There were some rumblings about it, but it actually being true kind of blew my mind. I don't know about the guests. We'll ask their opinion on that shortly. But just to let you know, Outriders is a game published by Square Enix. It's coming day and date to Game Pass. And I want to ask the gentlemen what their views are on it. I'm going to swim straight into the source. Lord Cognito, it's you, man. I see you smiling. I have to go to you first. What was your reaction when this was announced?
Huge surprise. For me, I've obviously, Iron Lord podcast, Destiny fan, fan of the looter shooter genre, live service and that kind of stuff. Outriders definitely had my attention. I'll be honest, I was in the middle with it, when I played the demo, but once I switched classes, I really started to find my groove with Technomancer. So it was something that I was going to eventually pick up. But when I heard this announcement, it really blew my mind because I felt like it's the perfect fit, the perfect marriage for Game Pass. I feel like this my favorite genre, like, games like Destiny, Division, those kind of live service games, they thrive on engagement. So I'm like, for a new IP to get the jump off on that service, and then coupled with the fact I feel like Game Pass is such a great service, and we know they got the first party games. We know that's amazing. But I think if you want to say there's one Achilles heel would be that brand new third party IP that launches day and date in the service. And I just think that's an attractive package. I think it's a huge get. I think it's a great bet by Square Enix on their own IP, and it makes it attractive to get it on the Xbox platform. I know a lot of people now that's like, great, I was on the fence, I wasn't going to buy it, and now it's in Game Pass, and it's like, oh, it's sexy now. Like now I'm thinking about it. So yeah, man, it's pretty exciting. I think that this is something I want to monitor to see how often this happens. You know what I'm saying? But this really is a tremendous boost to Game Pass. I was very, very surprised by this.
Yeah, you touched upon what I was kind of leading to is the significance of this, and I think the industry, everyone here is going to keep an eye on this. Whether this is going to be an outlier or not remains to be seen. But that was quite a big shock to me. And like you, I was on the fence. In fact, I don't think I'd have invested much time in it. But as soon as that got announced, my WhatsApp group chats, everyone was talking about forming parties and playing that game. Jeff, you seem to know things before everyone else does. But did this surprise you? Kind of. No. Oh, I mean, we'll touch on Elden Ring shortly. But what? Discord is hilarious. But what was your take on it? Were you taken aback by this?
I think when I first heard about it, I was actually on like the Xbox era podcast, because if I'm not sleeping or eating or working, apparently I'm on a podcast. So like they explained it to me like, oh, there's this tweet from they have the Melinda Game Pass or whatever her name is, and Melinda Mick Game Pass is probably what it is, and the tweet was like, oh, it's a signal and all this other stuff, and people are like, some of these lines in this thing are taken directly from the Outriders PR. I'm like, that actually makes sense. And then I looked into it that night, and it was like, oh no, this is definitely Outriders. So it's like, okay, all right, so cool. And then I think they announced it the next day, or if not the day after. It wasn't too surprising, but mostly because that game seems like it's ideal for this sort of situation. I guess it's the surprise is from Microsoft's side that they're willing to put the money to go out and get one of these. But to me, like, it's the kind of thing that has always made sense. Sony's spending a lot of money getting third-party exclusives on PS5 to basically keep the games off of Xbox, and I think that Microsoft found that doesn't work for them as well. Like when they did that with Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, I think it just didn't work very well for Microsoft. And I think they're like, well, what can we do with that kind of money and actually add it as a benefit to our, to our subscribers, the people we care about the most, people subscribe to Game Pass. And it was like, okay, bring those games day and date to Game Pass, spend that money there instead, especially these games that have the risk of falling through the cracks. And I think it makes such a big difference. It's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, this is where you see the value of your subscription. It's not like, okay, I was gonna buy this game anyhow, now it's exclusive to the system that I already own. I don't care, that doesn't do anything for me. But helping me save money on to try a game that I'm not sure if I was really gonna like anyhow, that's huge. And so it just made so much sense. I'm waiting to see, like Cognito was saying, like, is this something they're going to do a lot more of? I think they're waiting to see. I think Microsoft and publishers, everyone's waiting to see how this goes with this game. And then as we go forward, everyone will use the data they get from here to say, okay, does this make sense for a different kind of game? Maybe we could try because it worked for that. Maybe we have a similar kind of game, or we want to see similar results. Or if it doesn't work well at all, maybe we won't see more of it either. So I think this is going to be the test case, and we'll see how it goes from here.
Well, speaking of this being a test case, I'm sure, what your view, if you were the developers behind this game, you must be loving it, because day one you're going to have a fat player pool, no? That's going to be really something exciting for the developers. What are your take on that, Cognito? Because I know you're a massive Destiny fiend, so instantly you're the perfect guest for the show. Which is a game that seems to quite unashamedly copied a lot of Destinies. I'm sorry to say that, but it looks like it's been in development for a long time, so I don't want to take it away from the devs, and I'm sure they're going to make it distinctive. But that also has a healthy boon, so it may be a test case for Microsoft, but other devs will also be watching this, no? I'd like to see that.
I completely agree. I think, like I said, I think for the test case initially was Destiny with Beyond Light, with that deal that they made with Microsoft and getting that expansion brand new in the service. And again, I'm just anecdotal evidence, but I know people who were on the fence with Destiny, and they like, look, I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing now to invest in the ecosystem. And then, if you look at Xbox Live games played, Destiny kind of floundered probably, underneath, the 15 to 20 mark out of the top 10. But since it's been in Game Pass, that consistency has been as high as like the number 3 position. I've seen it go from 3 to 6 and kind of stay in that top 10 feel. So a game like this, it's a perfect marriage. You need that engagement. And it's almost like the gamer feels like he's getting it for free. So then now that kind of encourage them to say, well, you know what, I might get a little microtransaction here. I might buy that shirt here, or, and Microsoft's looking at these numbers. I know recently Bungie's, they've been kind of celebrating about, engagement from their side and how well they've been doing with Destiny. Obviously the fruits of that with the publishing arm and Amsterdam and all that stuff. But, I think for these live service games, this is a perfect feel. I agree with Jeff. I think that, they're both parties are probably in the experimental phase and they want to see how it goes. But I will say this in Square's point, they came off of Marvel Avengers, right? And they're now trying to rebound off of that. And those games demand engagement. They demand a roadmap. So if maybe they're seeing those numbers and say, you know what, they don't want to make a mistake with this IP and really give it a nice, healthy start, for a new IP. So I think it's a great move. I'm curious to see what comes back with the numbers and everything. But I think it's a good risk for both to take.
I think so. I think it's a resoundingly. I mean, it seems like it will be positive for the studio. But yeah, you're right. It remains to be seen. Hey, so before I go on to you, I just want to quickly shout out to Gunstar, who is now part of the Elite family. Yeah. Kenta Wilson, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. He has Game Pass. This is the way. The goodwill with Game Pass is it's immense. It's garnering so much goodwill from even some of the ardent haters of the system or the service, the optional service, I should say. Gaming Addict, thank you so much for the $2. He goes, Jeff Grubb for president. Mad respect, man.
Yep. I'm the host of the podcast. He ain't gave me the president. I was just salute the Addict, man. Now, Jeff is the man. Jeff is the man for sure.
Jeff is the G. That's why we keep inviting him here. ATL $5 super chat says the Lord's Day on a Saturday. Few things better than that. Much love to Lord Cognito and ILP. Shout out to Jeff Grubb. Jeff, man, I feel for you. Look, it sounds very salesy when I come into your DMs, but I get super excited because there's a lot to discuss here. Just get ready. The Elden Ring questions are coming. The Starfield questions are coming. But before we go into that, I want to talk to you about. Sorry, before I go into you, I want to talk about Asa. Sorry, my ADHD is kicking in. Asa, you're quite pessimistic about things, in my view, or optimistic, or influencer. I don't know what it is. You're the antithesis to my stupid prick energy, which is great for us, I guess. What is your view on the Outriders thing? Surely it's resoundingly positive, right?
Of course it is. There's nothing negative to say about getting given stuff. If it's not free technically, but essentially getting given stuff for free. And as people have already said, Outriders had a demo. It's interesting that the announcement came out after the demo. I'm assuming it's been planned for quite a while, but it had a demo, and the reception to the demo was mixed, lukewarm, myself included. I didn't have it on the list of games that I was going to pick up. A lot of people have talked about numbers and the numbers that Square Enix and Microsoft will be looking at. One of those that will actually be really interesting is the PlayStation sales and the PC sales, because it's not necessarily going to impact them negatively.
Yeah.
So as developers and publishers, they're going to be looking really closely to say, like, is this noise boosting our numbers everywhere, or it's just going to play a big part in third-party relations with Game Pass going forward? So it'll be really interesting to watch.
I think one of the numbers they'll look at is Cognito's talking about like Destiny doing very well on Game Pass. I think they'll Microsoft will be looking how many of those teams, those crews that come onto Destiny every night or play a lot of like multiplayer games together on Game Pass are going to go and give this game a try altogether, and or do they convince someone new to subscribe to Game Pass just to give this game a shot? Come play with us one night. It's only $10. It's only $15. Come on, just give it a shot. If there's a lot of of that network effect crossplay of people going from one game to another because all of their friends are doing that, that is a really powerful tool that Microsoft can leverage in the future going forward, and then if Outriders works, they can take those crews and say, hey, now try this next game that is similar to that, and so on, in infinity into the future and stuff like that. So I think they'll really try to see how the network effect plays out here, and if that is if it's successful, I think they'll do a lot more of this.
I think the network effect is already playing in the circles that I know.
Yeah.
There's so much positive boon. I mean, is this a game you were looking to play, Jeff, or are you excited? No,
yeah, definitely not. I mean, I have a hard time playing any games where I can't pause right now because I got two kids over there who are playing right there. Hi, yes, and they're gonna hurt themselves any minute now. They're gonna do something, and someone's gonna have to go to the bathroom, and so I feel guilty when I like drag down my friends because I have to go check on my kids. But it's something I might. She's yelling at me now. It's something I might check in on now because it's on Game Pass. What the hell? I mean, especially it's streaming on the phone. So I might, I got like a Retroid Pocket 2 coming that's going to be able to install the Xbox Game Pass app, and I might just try it on there so I don't have to even download anything, and just see if it's something I vibe with. Something I definitely never would have done if it wasn't on Game Pass.
See, that alone is massive. And that's the gateway, isn't it? It's kind of like what drug dealers do. Just hey, the first sample's free.
Yes.
Hey, give you a taste.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's a terrible way of putting it. Carry on.
Reel him in, Asa. Reel him in. Reel him in.
Right.
Get your boy.
But it's quite interesting. Cog, I know for a fact you'll be playing it because the first thing I thought about is this is the Destiny Cruise kind of mentality, and it worked on me. And I was lukewarm on it based on Asa's technalysis as well. But now that talk has changed from technical specs of the Xbox, which was not faring well with the PlayStation one, to this is amazing because you're not paying for it. I want to talk about Game Pass as a whole though, and Jeff, your take on this, because to me, and there was a really good article on Forbes on it, with an interview with someone from EA whose name I will pull up. They talked about the effect of Game Pass. It's the vice president of publishing at EA called Jonathan Bunny. He didn't describe it as something. He didn't describe it as a game changer, which is something I would veer towards. I would say it's a game changer. He described it more as something disruptive, and it's just he described it as just one more facet of an ever-growing space, bringing new things to the table without supplanting the old ones. Do you agree with that take, or do you agree with my more fanciful, it's a game changer, things will never be the same ever again?
Well, I think the term, the disruptive term means closer to what you're describing there. Like Netflix disrupted movies, Spotify disrupts, Napster originally disrupts music distribution, and now Spotify capitalizes on that. I think that's the term that he's thinking there, but I think he's right in that gaming is a little different, and I think Microsoft will be hesitant about like trying to shift us all to Game Pass. They know that gaming is a pretty small community relative to movies and music. There's fewer of us, but we're a lot louder and we spend a lot more money than like the typical music fan or gaming or movie fan. And so when something happens that we don't like, we're a lot louder about it, and we tend to throw around our wallets a little bit harder. And so Microsoft knows this very well now. They've learned that lesson the hard way several times over at this point. And they also don't need to push us. They just need to lead us. They need to do the more of the carrot, less of the stick. So the problem with the Xbox One when it launched, of course, or when it was going to launch, of course, was they were trying to force us into this model of you can't sell your games, secondhand. You're always going to be online. And what they realized is, well, we can't do that because they hate this and it's going to trash our brand. We have to back off and instead do the exact same thing, but we'll lead them there themselves. We'll lead the gamers there by offering them Game Pass and all these other things where we basically are now always online and all these things happened. It's just we chose it ourselves, so we feel a little bit better about it. But that doesn't mean, like, in order for that to work, they can't take away the way the things used to work. And there's going to be a lot of gamers who like to spend a lot of money who are going to want to continue to buy their games. Yeah. I think if this works how Microsoft wants, I still think in 5-10 years, I think definitely by 10, but probably even by 5 years, the idea of buying a video game outright to most people probably will seem pretty strange. So I maybe I lean towards your take that this is a completely new thing. It is going to be a game changer and it might supplant it, but I think more likely it's just going to bring in a lot more people and those people will just get used to this new model and won't have any attachment to the old model of buying their games outright. I still think Microsoft's going to continue selling their games outright for quite some time, though.
I think so too. I think that it's already, you say 5 to 10 years. To me, I know we're at the edge here, right at the front edge case, but to me, it's already seeming kind of antiquated buying a full price game like that. I don't know. I think it will be disruptive if the scale of these deals, things like Outriders, become the norm, and also if the competition tries to match it, which they have to, which I want to then lead on to you, Cognito. Lord Cognito, tell me, what can Sony... Actually, as I'm asking this question, Jeff, your tweet is the Evo tweet is in my head, but what can Sony do, Cognito, to match this? Surely there is immense pressure on PlayStation to do this, because they've done a third-party timed exclusive, which is quite funny, with Forspoken, which is typically more the Sony type of first, single-player game versus what Microsoft has done here with a multiplayer co-op experience. But do you think this could kickstart similar day one third-party deals on PlayStation Now, for instance, or do you think Sony are feeling the pinch here?
I mean, look, it's definitely something they have to take note to. We can't, undermine when you see, things like the Bethesda deal and Microsoft in this acquisition phase for Game Pass as far as studios. So it's definitely something they have to monitor. As far as I'm not on board yet with the, oh my God, it's over. Like they better do something now. I think as gamers, we get very reactionary and we act like this is an episode of a TV show. Tune in next week. What's Sony gonna do? I don't think it's that with that. So for me, it's more of, yeah, I know it. You like the sauce, Ace. I know. But for me, it's more of, look, continue doing what you've been doing. You have these amazing, great first-party IPs, this tremendous history, this lineage of studios that make quality titles. You continue to do that. However, what I've noticed they've done with this generation is they've kind of gone around the acquisition as far as the timed exclusive. You talked about the Forsaken, the Final Fantasy 16s, those timed exclusive deals where you associate that third-party game with the PlayStation brand. We still don't know what's up with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm a Final Fantasy VII fan. I wasn't waiting for the Xbox version. I'm sorry. So those type of deals, that's going to test the gamer to say, okay, I don't know the status of this, but I know it's on the PlayStation platform. I'm going to get it. And if they keep their normal, the key with them is just maintaining the quality and the cadence. I do think they will do more deals. Obviously before the Bethesda thing, we did find out, hey, they were in the process of trying to get Starfield, as far as some type of exclusivity and things like that. You hear these stories. So I think that's their approach right now. I don't think they're in panic mode per se, but it's definitely something they have to take seriously, though, because Microsoft is coming. They literally are trying to embolden and bolster that service of Game Pass. And when you see things like Outriders, I think that to me marked a significant philosophy change. And I'm like, okay, they're being aggressive with third parties to say, okay, you have it on PlayStation, but it's $70 there. You know what I mean? And now this tests the gamer. The gamer now is I've seen, some people say, hey, I was on the fence with this game. I wasn't going to buy this game. I was even in that spot at one point. I needed to see more. You throw that on Game Pass, it feels free. It feels like you're getting away with something. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So
it's free if you're subscribed already. You're not paying.
The key will be if this translate, as Asa says, because he's the realist here. I like that. He's going to reel us back in. But the key will see if the data supports that, right? If the data shows, hey, more people are playing over here. Those engagement numbers, those concurrent users are playing on Xbox. Then PlayStation's gonna have a problem. But until then, we're still in the wait and see. They can hold the fort down with the quality exclusives.
Do you agree with that, Jeff? Do you agree that Sony can still play the status quo and buy those third-party, third-party timed exclusives and still be done with it? And maybe they're not feeling the pinch like I'm saying they are.
I don't think they're feeling the pinch right now. I think I think the pinch could turn into something down the line, and I think the big issue here is the money thing. It's the money situation. Sony has a realistic amount of money. Microsoft has an unrealistic amount of money. They have an impossible amount of money. And so if Microsoft starts looking around and saying, oh, there are some other companies on this earth that have similar kinds of money to us, Tencent and Amazon, and maybe they want to start trying to compete with us. Maybe we should be spending more money, not even thinking about Sony coming in and doing the similar thing. Sony just doesn't have the same kind of money. So if Microsoft starts going down that route, Sony just could be in a situation where a lot of these companies that they make these third-party deals with don't exist anymore because Microsoft or Amazon or Tencent have bought them all. And so that's like the long-term concern, I think, for Sony. But honestly, what can they do about that? I mean, I think they could try to build up a service that is kind of similar and competing, but even then, like they're still going to have to pay for this content in some way, and I think that's going to be a challenge. So if I were them, I think I would keep doing things the way I've been doing to just make yourself give yourself brand loyalty from customers that is just unmatched by Microsoft, and that'll go a long way. And keep doing the first party stuff just like you've been doing it. You're better than anyone else at the kinds of games you make for the fans that really like those games. But then start maybe thinking about the value. I think Cognito made a very good point about you feel like you're getting away with something on Game Pass a lot of times. That's something that is very powerful for customers. It's something that that people really like. It's a part of our brain chemistry that you could just give us a fair price out of the gate, and I'm really going to think about that. If you make me feel like I'm getting away with something, I'm going to act. I am going to act right now because I'm like, this deal could go away. Even if at the end of the day, the prices are exactly the same. The fair price and this one I feel like I'm getting away with. Even if it's the same, my brain wants to go towards the thing where I feel like, oh, I'm getting a deal and I'm taking this person to the bank, even though it's exactly what they wanted me to do. And that's what's happening with Microsoft. But I'll finish up by saying that I think that PlayStation is going to be just fine throughout this generation, and they'll have plenty of time to figure out how they want to shift if they need to, and they won't have to change up too much. These third-party deals, though, I do wonder if they're going to like last, if we're going to see this sort of thing like 2 or 3 years from now, or if by that point Sony's just like, everyone's already bought the PlayStation 5, we could sort of back off on this, and then if it comes to everything, we just don't care anymore. And honestly, I don't know why gamers really would care too much about third-party deals that keep things off of other platforms. It's just like, okay, yeah, if it's on the system, I'm going to be able to buy it. That doesn't really do much for me. It's like it's still on the system, even if you made it exclusive, or even if you kept it off of Xbox. It's just not doing much for me as a PS5 owner. So I wonder if Sony transitions to another model like halfway through this generation.
That'll be really interesting. That's the big question for me, whether that actually happens or if, they can maintain that status quo. I guess it is a big case of let's wait and see. There's nothing stopping them from reacting and changing what is essentially a policy decision. So that'd be really interesting. Hey, so before going to, let me read the super chats. Do a drunken throat punch. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dude, Xbox is coming out the gate swinging hard with Game Pass, and it is an amazing price for a lot of games. Xbox and Xbox Live combined. # Team Xbox. It's that. There it is. That's that serotonin release that Jeff you were alluding to. It's like you're getting away with it, like Cog said. Italian Clowns, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Great guy. Great to see Lord Cog and Jeff. I have so much respect for both of these guys. I respect Jeff's honesty and straightforwardness as a journalist. Jeff, you are unashamedly my most favorite journalist. I'm not just saying that because you're on here. That's nothing to do with your skills. It's just your hair.
Of course. No, that makes more sense. Yeah, that's fair.
Poxy, thank you so much for the £1 super chat, but no message. But we know you're just spreading love, and I hope you're enjoying that Mario game that you won and that competition. Asa, are Jeff and Cog on the money? That Sony aren't really feeling the pinch yet. They shouldn't really worry just yet. That they can react and the status quo will be sufficient. Because what we're seeing in our circles with our friends, we all think is the second coming, but that's the echo chamber now. What do you think?
To an extent, so Sony are in an interesting position because Microsoft has said time and time again what their strategy is with Game Pass, and that's to grow gaming rather than to knock Sony out and fight for market share within the console space. They want to grow it beyond that. Sony are just... They're not Microsoft's target, but they're at some risk of becoming collateral damage because Microsoft's moves are powerful in the console space, even if that's not the intent. Sony at some point need to make a decision on how they want to compete, because I said it last week, but there's a perfectly viable strategy that exists where you behave like Nintendo and do your own thing. Okay, you can succeed there. You can do different things. You don't need to follow Microsoft into cloud gaming and all the rest of it. Or they can say, actually, we want world domination as well. Let's look at the right partnerships to do that. Do we talk to Google with Stadia that wants third-party games? Do we talk to Amazon? Do we talk to Microsoft and try and dovetail with what they're doing? They've got strategic decisions to make. They don't need to panic by any means. They've got the most powerful brand going. In terms of gaming, it's still the most recognized brand that there is. They've got a lot of power in that space. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there's opportunities for them rather than panic. But
yeah. So, because it's in my head, because I like to get swept up in the sauce, and it's kind of self-inflicted, really, but at least I recognize my madness. I thought this would kickstart a similar day one third-party deals on PS Now, or maybe prompt Sony to remarket or rebrand PS Now. But talking to you guys, I'm the outlier again in my life. It's always the case. So that's not on the cards, Jeff. You don't think a rebrand is going to happen with PS Now, or needed? Or...
They don't seem to care about PlayStation Now right now. All the focus is on PS Plus. That's where they're. Yeah. If you want to feel like you're getting away with something on PlayStation, you subscribe to PS Plus, because that's where they're adding a lot of benefits there that feel like really good deals. And then they're also doing the play at home thing, so people are getting free games without even having to do anything except own the console. And so like it seems to me like they just want to shore up those PS Plus subscriptions, and that if they start doing anything interesting, they'll do it there. And to me that signifies that if that's where their focus is, they aren't going to try to emulate exactly what Microsoft is doing. I think they also know that they can't, because their games are too expensive. Really, all the games they make are very expensive, but some of them are the most expensive games ever made, and that model is very tough if you start trying to put any of that stuff on PS Now day and date. And if they're not going to do that, then no matter what they do, PS Now is just never going to look quite the same as Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. So Sony being pretty clever here, being pretty smart, and saying, let's not even try to have that fight. Let's just be us. Let's just be PlayStation. And for a lot of people, that's not just good enough. That's exactly what they want. That they just want PlayStation to be PlayStation. And so they're avoiding the fight, and I think they're smart to do so.
That's a very good take. And okay, rein me back in sensible land. That's true. And Sony have alluded, they've literally expressly said this, let's be fair, that they can't do that. There are millions poured into their quality of games, in fact, and PlayStation gamers will want that. That's Sony's strong suit, and no one does it as good in that regard, in that Sony template, as well as Sony does. Isma, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. He says, last article I've seen from Forbes.com stated how Game Pass is a game changer because of the fact that it boosts the player base of a game, microtransactions, playtime, and game sales. More devs will see the benefit of Game Pass soon. Actually going to allude, I read out that quote from Jonathan Bunny was from that Forbes article. And you're absolutely correct. And I think, I forgot the name here, Rose, sorry, I didn't get the full name. So the main thing for us is that sales didn't go down. You worry that you make things free and no one will buy it anymore. That didn't happen with Game Pass. So it's being resoundingly positive in the dev circles. So, and indie circles. Right now, Microsoft is feeding that drug really, really wholeheartedly. Who knows how things change later on? It's not an ominous declaration or like a guess here, but that's a good point. But I agree with you. There's a lot of goodwill here. Lord Roughness, thank you so much. One of the lords again. Thank you for the £5 super chat. I think it's not about Microsoft or PlayStation. This is what Acer says a lot. I think it's about more and more devs will want to put their games on Game Pass. It's and it sounds like a very oversimplification, and a lot of people don't like this analogy, but the Netflix of games isn't that far off in my opinion. But
all.
What do you think, Joe? No?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it is. That's what they're going for. If you don't want to say Netflix, it's the Spotify of games. Then that's what they're going for. I think Netflix works a little bit better just because Netflix has exclusives, right? So, and that's what draws people to Netflix over some of these other ones. But Netflix also has the first mover advantage. That's what Microsoft's going for. There's a lot of parallels in there, and I think the biggest difference is just the way you make movies is different than the way you make games. Movies have a lot of unions and a lot of guilds, where if you want to hire up to make a movie, a lot of these people are just waiting in the wings. They have healthcare through their guilds, and so they're ready to come and just work on your thing as part of like a contract. Whereas with games, if those people aren't actively working on a game at a company, they are going to leave and go to another company. So you have to hire those companies yourselves and create that content yourselves. It's a lot more expensive actually than the movie model. But Microsoft's not going to change that. So they're just like, yeah, let's just go ahead and buy it up. But otherwise it's pretty much the same goal there for sure.
Yeah. Do you agree, Lord Cog, that is, to me, it looks like the Netflix of games?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's the long-term play. I mean, it definitely feels that way. They this is something that, I know as gamers, it's like a paradigm shift for us. We're so used to the old way of thinking, the old model. How are they going to sustain this? And again, to them, Game Pass is the platform. That's where they want you invested in. They don't care where you do it at. And I know what gamers, it's everything is we're so wired to NPD and we're so wired to sales, and that's just not how Microsoft looks at it. And kudos to Phil, for getting Satya and the upper management to kind of buy in if they really want to commit to this model. So yeah, like at the end of the day, this is where they're going. And it will be interesting to see, like I said, long term, because again, if it keeps growing, we saw what the initial numbers were, 18 million at one point. I was actually surprised, that they were doing so well. They're measuring engagement. They're measuring these devices in places where consoles can't go. And that to me is the long term play. And what, as the shout out to a point Jeff said, like, I think they learned the mistake of the last generation. A lot of time Microsoft is innovative, but like they kind of forced their way in, when even though it's the right call, but it's like gamers were like, no, you're not going to do this with this digital stuff. You're not taking my physical. And I think this gen, they've learned from that mistake. And you see it with something like xCloud as opposed to Stadia's approach, where Stadia's like, this is replacing the console. Right? Yeah. This is the, whatever. And, with Microsoft, they're like, no, this is just an additive option. You have the option to stream it on your phone. You have the option now. They're going to get it in the browsers, the TVs, hopefully, and so on and so forth. So I think they've learned, Jeff said it briefly, like they've learned correctly how to nurture the gamer to nudge us in that direction, as opposed to this full-on push. This is how it's, and this may be the future. This may be where gaming is going, and it's an antiquated model to continue maybe 10 years down the road, this $67 thing, and get that reoccurring subscription revenue all the time. So it's fun. It's a fun thing to watch. I think this gen is going to be super competitive. I'm already excited how things are going, because each one of the big three have their own philosophy, and it's fun to watch. Like Nintendo's going to Nintendo. They've got this niche, cool hybrid console that is just killing it. Sony's got the reputation to report these amazing first party studios and the quality, what I'm saying? And then you got his disruptive Game Pass, right? Like it seems like, wow, this could be a game changer. And, people are starting to slowly come around and buy in, especially with the Outriders news and things of that nature. So it's exciting. As a gamer, this is exciting. I can't wait to see how this thing plays out with all three, man. This is a fun time.
It's really good that Microsoft has something substantive to offer this gen, which is a stark contrast to what it was doing last gen. And it's good that the more, like Jeff, you said, more carrot, less stick, and that's what it is. The stick was beaten over Microsoft to make sure that it employs this policy.
We just took it from him and like, get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
Xbox One bullshit. Get out of here.
You ain't like TV?
Yeah,
was it about that?
TV. Yeah. I already got a TV.
Oh man, that was a fun generation, but a generation well spent learning mistakes. And well, kudos to Microsoft. It has the bank, I guess, to afford to swallow those mistakes. Shout out to over 250 people watching. Thank you so much. Smash that like button if you guys are watching it. Asa, sorry, you were going to say something on this point about Game Pass being the Netflix of games. What was it you were saying? Sorry, before I interrupted you.
No, I wasn't. I was only interested. I was only interested. The point that was going around at the point that I was going to say something was about all of these third parties wanting to put their games on Game Pass. I don't think we're quite at this point yet. where people are being turned away, but Microsoft have always maintained that they don't want to oversaturate it with content, and actually there's a quality bar that they're looking for in the content that goes on there. So I wonder when we start getting to a point where everybody wants to be on Game Pass and Microsoft is saying, no, that's too much content. We want to feed people the right amount, and you're not allowed. One of the super chats there, I'm sure you'll get to in a minute, also pointed out there's a lot of talk about exclusives at the moment. And as I've said time and time again, the big risk for Sony is third party, which is exactly what they're alluding to. So Sony's console strategy has always been sell the console relatively cheap, use your exclusives to entice people over, but then put your feet up and take all that money, all the royalties from all the third party games. And that's where Game Pass is a risk to them. Because if they lose that third party share, and that's why Game Pass can't go onto PlayStation in any... I don't want to say it's totally impossible, but it's ridiculous to think about, because they've got third-party games on there, and it would be incredibly complex to figure out how to put Game Pass on.
They'd have to do just Microsoft games.
For first party, yep.
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah. There's no way. Yeah,
and again, even that's like, if that happens, still years away from that conversation even starting.
Yeah, exactly. But that's when you talk about the risk of Game Pass to Sony, that's where it is. They don't want third-party consumers, the players of those games, to migrate away and stop giving them that easy cut that they don't do a whole lot for. But
isn't that such I think it's a real risk, because I think I think you talk a lot of PlayStation fans, and they're like, we like the single player games, that's what we want to play, that's what we're into, and it's like, if this is your fan base, you know, I'm sure I'm extrapolating, I'm sure a lot of those players actually do end up playing Fortnite or whatever, but I think there's a real risk of Sony kind of get a situation where they are just making games for people who are just playing Sony exclusives, and if that's what they end up with, that's actually bad news for Sony. I think that the player that plays online multiplayer games and spends money on microtransactions is worth so much more than the player who just plays Sony exclusives. It's a night and day difference in the value. So it's a real risk.
Definitely. I think that noise of that single player audience is still just amplified because there's a core audience making that noise on the internet.
On the internet. Preach.
Sales charts, half the time on the PlayStation sales charts, they're not even exclusive. They're all third-party titles, multiplayer titles. So you're absolutely right there. Foxtrot, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. He says like, which I guess makes Gaz Tigger. Just curious what you guys think Microsoft will acquire this year. I'm going to touch on that later on, Foxtrot. That's in the discussions. Lord Nitor, that was your super chat, which is the one I was looking at, which is the one Asa referenced. You guys talk about exclusives, but the money's on multi-plat games, and Sony do not want people to go to Xbox for that, and that's a big risk. That's where the source really is. Faisal, thank you. Welcome back. He's thank you for the £2 super chat. He goes, would the Game Pass model affect the physical copy? I don't know what that means. Do you mean that has an impact on physical sales? If you can just type that in the chat, I'll try and make sense of that. Sorry, apologies. Gerald Mack, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says last generation Xbox was competing not only with PlayStation but also Sony. This generation is a bit different from Microsoft, along with Xbox in its competition. Which is what Lord Cog, you were saying. Everyone is in their own distinct lane. Nintendo will be the kings always, because they are so arrogant in the lane that they operate in. And we see them for that in spades. Nintendo is a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, look, we're wearing the shirts, and we're here. We are paying. Wait, hold on. Isn't this game no longer for sale now?
Coming in, Switch coming in hot.
It's really interesting. I love that, and you're right, Cog. It's so good to see everyone doing something in this space. They've carved out a space for themselves. There's space for everyone in this industry. So that's the thing. Octopath Traveler, though, speaking of Nintendo, that's on Game Pass now. Square Enix are getting more cozy with Xbox. This game was formerly a Nintendo exclusive. What's your take on that, Jeff? Or is that just by the by?
No, I think that's kind of a really good pickup for Game Pass. I think it makes sense for that game, where it's like it did have its life on Switch and PC, and I think you put it on Game Pass, and it's like it's a whole new story for that game in terms of like, how it's getting out there. You can start selling it on PlayStation and Xbox, but we see that all the time. If you just put it on Game Pass and just kind of give a lot of people a chance to talk about it again, and also guarantee sales on Xbox, a platform not necessarily known for JRPGs, it builds up that conversation, and then maybe you see a sales bump on Switch, and Steam. And I think that's something that I think we've talked a little bit about. And I think it's something Square Enix is counting on a little bit. And I just think Square Enix right now is in the mood to make deals with everyone. I think they're like, yeah, let's have a long-term Final Fantasy deal with Sony, and then kind of talk, and then if we want to put Outriders on Game Pass, we'll do that, and then we'll get a Octopath Traveler out there as well. I think this is just kind of where we're at, where these companies are looking to shore up money wherever they can, and there's a lot of options for them now, and these options can synchronize and play off one another and amplify sales in different ways, and I think that's what they're counting on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very interesting to see. It's a positive boon, especially with COVID. Gaming just been one of those few industries that's been thriving, and it's good on Square Enix for thinking of these proactively. Lord Cog, your reaction was funny to that, but then sorry, I should have led to you first with that question, but then Jeff said something that Final Fantasy might be a long-term exclusive on PlayStation. You might never see on Xbox, which is sad.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I didn't even know anything about Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It's huge on Switch, man. I mean, rave reviews, that style JRPG, just classic vibes, classic feel, and it did well on Switch. So I mean, at the end of the day, I was shocked. I was shocked to see that on Game Pass. Generally, JRPGs generally not always flock to the Xbox brand. So I thought that was a great, unique pickup. Kind of helps fill a niche that is missing. And let's be real, it's not. From my understanding, not on PlayStation, right? Correct. From my understanding, not yet. So again, that's also a surprise to me because if any brand would get that first, I would assume it would be Sony. So yeah, this is a big get. I mean, I just like what Xbox is doing in that space. When you see the things like I always told people like Yakuza, Like a Dragon, which I'm playing now. Seeing those games that historically have not debuted first on the Xbox platform, to me is great because you want that diversity of titles. If you want Game Pass to succeed, you just can't do one style of game, and that's the problem, like you said earlier, Gaz, with there's this vocal minority that the bangers, right? The Sony, the first party, the third person over the shoulder, which I like. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I want Xbox, for the record, hashtag just what I still want Xbox first party studio to make one game in that genre. I'm going to die on that hill. The Xbox community hates me when I say that, but I'm dying on it. I just want one. That's it. I feel the rest of the studios continue to do what they have to do. But anyway, back to my point. It's that diversity of titles that you need on the service. So when you see the JRPGs, you see these type of games coming to Game Pass, that excites me because this is something that was always a deficiency, in my opinion, for Xbox. So Octopath is a good look, man. And I think Jeff's on it. Like, I think Square is just sitting back, and it's a great time to be a dev and just say, okay, where's the best deal I can get? Okay, Game Pass here. Okay, Final Fantasy timed exclusive here. Okay, like you're in a good position right now. I even seen Bungie do it. I'm a Destiny fan. It was on Stadia. It was on they're all over the place. Like this is a great time to leverage everyone against themselves, and you benefit. For the assets that you have. So again, good get though by Microsoft. I do enjoy this.
Well, Microsoft are making it rain. All these studios are going to obviously swallow up their money, and at the same time, you're right, simultaneously play out all these different fields and see how it works. Square Enix are onto a winner there. Hey, so what's your take on Octopath Traveler coming out on Xbox? Were you surprised? Are you ever surprised?
I had no expectation that Octopath Traveler was going anywhere else. I'm actually more interested in that studio's next game, their Project Triangle Strategy, whatever that is. I saw that and was very interested, so I hope that comes over, whether it be with a similar delay or not. I don't want to upset people. I'm not particularly a Switch player. I have a Switch, but I'm not a massive fan of it. If this long rumored Switch Pro becomes a thing and I can use that, I'll be all over it. But I'm not one for portable gaming because the only place that I would use it is on a train, and I can't do that without being sick. So
for me,
consoles and PCs. No, I never do that.
I never do. Shout out to Asa.
We are very different creatures. Guns, I think so. I'll reach out to that later. Randall Thor is in the house.
Woo!
Thank you so much. Man with a million.
My guy.
He is the G. You need to come on here. Camera reveal.
Camera on, sir.
Camera on. This is the thing. This is the sticking point with our format. Just because I made an exception for dealer gaming, which you were on, doesn't mean that it applies to you, Rand. You have to come on. We'd love to have you on. Thanks so much for the $5 super chat, because the moment has arrived. There is essentially a waiting list for Game Pass, which I think is alluding to what you were saying, Asa, about not like overflowing the service with that, right? There is that thing though.
20, yeah. So Microsoft always said they don't want to oversaturate it, and then they put 20 Bethesda games on the same day. So it's happening either way. But
yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think it's what we were talking about earlier, where it's a lot of developers have learned that this doesn't hurt your sales elsewhere; it only seems to help. And I think a good example of that is PS Plus. Multiple PS Plus games now have launched, or so multiple games have launched day and date on PS Plus, and meanwhile, at the same exact time, we're selling 20 million copies on Steam. And I think people are not seeing, oh, it doesn't hurt. It's actually a huge boon. It's actually this thing that's driving people to talk about the game to the point where these games end up selling way better than they might have if they weren't on PS Plus, and they're selling way better on other platforms. So, yeah, I think developers want to be on this real bad.
Yeah,
that PS Plus is a really good example, because it's kind of, when you talk about Microsoft not wanting to oversaturate Game Pass, PS Plus is the example of not oversaturating it, because you get these two games and it's a massive spotlight.
Yes.
So maybe that's where it's all coming from. But
right, and they were like, yeah, it's really throttled. So like Xbox Game Pass, a lot less throttled than PS Plus, but it still seems like, yeah, there's a lot of games out there that want to be on there and just are gonna have to wait.
Oh wow, yeah, you're right, Rand. That waiting line is real. Starfield Gunstar, I do definitely want to read that one, but we're definitely coming into that. Gerald Mack, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Shout out to Game On Podcast. Special shout out to Lord Cognito, Jeff Grubb. Great show, great topics. Hashtag Game Pass and chill. That's the second Game Pass hashtag I've seen. You're trending it in the wrong place, but I think it's already trending. Thank you so much, and thank you for the kind words. The guests make the show, not us. So thank you so much, guests, as always. CYVV Studio Frequent Watcher, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Taking games away from gamers who don't want to buy your console is not healthy for us. I prefer Game Pass's model. PS fans should reject Sony's strategy.
Jesus, it's aggressive.
But that's the whole point. Like, Sony fans don't care. Well, I mean, they do care, but only in like forum message board wars and stuff like that. But if like, okay, yeah, you're paying to keep the game off other consoles, but if I have a PS5, okay, I still get the game, so I'm just gonna play it. Like, no one's gonna take time out of their day to like write to Sony like, my Xbox brethren should have this game too, sir. Like, no one's gonna do that. So yeah,
very
someone
few people, when they're playing a game, are kind of endorsing the strategic decisions of the company, and they just want to play
yeah. No ethical consumption under capitalism, but man, I still got to eat, so just come on, still got to play these games.
Exactly. I was going to ask, and actually, Cog, you actually reached out to you alluded to this point, but I wanted to talk about this whole metric, which seems to me more antiquated. Microsoft will probably be banking on me hoping that I think it's antiquated. Hardware sales, is that a less relevant metric now compared to MAUs, monthly active users? What's your take on that?
For Microsoft, it is. I mean, that's their philosophy, and like I said, like Jeff said it, and Asa alluded to earlier. You know, Sony's still in that space. You know, that's where they're comfortable. I think they're more reluctant. They're more of a wait and see approach to see how things, in my opinion, affect them. But I'm not going to say it's antiquated. Look, you want your console to sell. I would believe Microsoft does as well. But I just feel it's just not as weighted as it was for them, in the past. They would rather you have a Game Pass subscription. They that's the goal. So for me, it's. I look at it different now. Like when the MPDs come, shout out to Matt, shout out to Benji Sales, who we had on the show and stuff like that. Both of them great. But like I look at it more for trends. I look at it for like, okay, like you said earlier, guys, like, okay, as much as we talk exclusive, it like blows my mind when I see what the top 3 are, and I'm like, wow, Call of Duty again, or what I'm saying, or this again. Like, to me, it's about. And then when I do see an exclusive, like shout out to Miles Morales and stuff like that, really crack the top 5 and stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. You know what I mean? So it's more of a trend software thing for me at this point, as opposed to like, because let's be real, I mean, if we really want to get numbers, like Switch is out here dominating. Like Switch, right. It's a runaway. Like, so for all this, noise on Twitter about that's what it's about. The Nintendo fans should be out here with their chest out, like Jeff got the shirt on, like they should be out here like we run this. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Like that's the people who should be talking, because they have not won. I mean, I can't remember the last non-Nintendo NPD in a while. Like they've been dominating with the Switch, and the fact that it's hybrid and multiple, consoles per household can happen. There's so many factors with it. So to me, yes, is it something I monitor? Yes, but is it something I'm like, this is the Bible, and if this is not, you're not winning the MPD this month, then you're not, a factor in gaming. Like a lot of this stuff I see on Twitter. No, to me, I just monitor the software trends, and that's it.
So if what Lord Cognito is saying, Jeff, is correct, then are we not precluded from actually deciding or being able to determine a winner, or is the winner really murky, or can we never do that? Because some people like me, we're idiots. We like to, he won, my team won, or this team won. We can't do that now.
I mean, you can. It just like, don't be surprised if the people competing don't give a shit. Like, they don't care. Like Mike, I'll say that yes. When we decide who's winning, who's losing, it has very little to do with whether or not like Phil Spencer's going to keep having a job. Because if he's like got a long-term profitable strategy, Satya Nadella is going to be just happy, and Satya Nadella is like has tied his compensation to Game Pass subscriptions. So that's what they care about. They don't care, like they're not tying to console sales. Now, I will say that this is a slow process of shifting the market to a new business model. It's something that like Microsoft has done successfully before by shifting from selling Windows to shifting to subscriptions towards Office 365 and things like that. So it understands that it's a long-term process, but during that time, they didn't stop caring about how many copies of Windows they were selling. They wanted to sell a lot of copies of Windows because they still need that money, and the more people that have Windows, are more people who are likely to subscribe to these products as well, because it was just like slowly they were going to realize, oh, I'm just going to pay $7 a month because I'd like to have Excel when I need it. That's the same thing that's going to happen with consoles. And console sales right now are still very important to Microsoft, because that audience out there, that those 2 billion gamers out in the world that they always talk about, it's going to take a long time to reach them. It's going to take a long time to convince them to feel comfortable just playing on their TV, which is something they really can't even do yet. You have to use a mobile device, and a lot of people don't want to play that way. But even if they do want to play that way, you still have to convince them over a long period of time. Bring those people in, let them know like there's a lot of different games here for you. You're someone who didn't want to buy a console. Okay, come in here. Trust me, there's going to be stuff for you. That's a long-term conversation. And in the meantime, the people that they need to get on Game Pass are the people who will buy a console. So console sales still very important, but in terms of like in terms of like the console war and us like trying to say there is one winner, it's way too murky now. It's way too murky. I mean, I think if the easy answer right now is like, yes, Sony's having a record launch of the PS5, but also that's in dollar sales in the United States.
Yes.
And the thing's $500, and no console really that was ever $500 has ever sold this well. So it's kind of like in another stratosphere, and you have to put in inflation. And then really, if it isn't like who sells the most games. Well, there's more PS4s in the world than there were Switches, and yet there's no PS5 game that sold 30 million copies. So isn't Nintendo really in the lead? But yeah, there's more. It's just there's too many caveats to like clearly declare a winner, and everyone's trying to do something different. So it's still an interesting conversation. I'm still having fun talking about you with it, and just trying to figure out who's winning. But it is way more complicated than it was in the 90s. Or maybe I was just a kid and I didn't know any better, but it feels more complicated.
I have a question, Gaz. Wait. I've got to ask Jeff a question. So, Gaz can carry on with his console wars, and we'll have a grown-up conversation over here.
Yes, please.
The voice of reason is speaking.
You mentioned there that Microsoft are gradually shifting what the gaming market is over time. A long, slow shift because people are stubborn and resistant to it.
Yeah.
Is this change, is what they're targeting long term, something that we as crusty old gamers should be scared of, or is it something that looks positive for us?
So I think that there's always the potential for things to go sideways and for a kind of game that you like to disappear. I think this is something that has happened repeatedly, but I will say that right now it seems mostly like a good thing. I think a good example is a developer like Arcane. First of all, if Microsoft hadn't acquired Bethesda, Arcane probably would have been shut down, closed up, or sold off maybe, but probably closed down. And so you're not going to get immersive sims anymore. And there's a lot of old hardcore gamers who grew up on immersive sims like System Shock, and it's a genre that these people love, and it's a genre that has struggled to find an audience beyond what we like, beyond that small audience that existed in the 90s. It hasn't grown much, but under Microsoft, under the Game Pass model, it seems to make a lot more sense. It's something that you could throw into it's additive, and there's going to be a lot more people who are going to be willing to give it a try than they would have if the game was $60. Now, at the same time, I think we've already said it. Like, Sony is afraid of doing this same exact thing because their games are too expensive for Game Pass. So does that mean like Quad A, whatever that is, like the super mega big budget games won't work on this model? Possibly, and I think they'll shy away from it. Now, for me, I don't really care that much. I think the biggest, most massive big budget games have never done that much for me. I like stuff that is a little bit messier, stuff that's closer to Skyrim than God of War, but that's just my taste. If your taste is more towards God of War and more towards The Last of Us Part 2, if this business model does sort of take over, that stuff might not make as much sense anymore. Especially if there's no like live service component that can continue to make money for years and years and years. And so, yeah, I think everyone should always be worried because these companies are going to do what makes them the most money. And if that means, like, as an Advance Wars fan, if Nintendo realizes that Fire Emblem makes more money because it has waifus and Advance Wars doesn't, well, then I'm going to be out of luck as an Advance Wars fan because the Fire Emblem model makes way more money. So, yeah, this is just something that's going to continue to happen. Definitely keep an eye out for it. But I wouldn't like treat it like, this is the oncoming into the world or anything. It's just another thing to be worried about, maybe. Mostly, though, I think it's going to be a good thing.
I think mostly it is, and you're right. Like even John Carmack, when the Bethesda thing was announced, he said, maybe I can now work on some of my older titles. Which makes me think, isn't that just Quake? Because Doom is already a thing. But yeah, no, absolutely. Asa, but this is your question. Does that answer satisfy you?
Yeah, it's fine. You can take over again. That's just it's an interesting way of looking at it. If there is a shift happening, then it's how aware and how alert should we be? How resistant should we be? But
yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's really hard to see the negative, but it's quite early on to see where the trends are. What games are being precluded from being developed? Some things might fall out of the loop.
Right.
See, I'm not the same there. See, I don't think it is hard to see the negative. I think people are already, and have been for a long time, speculating about potential negatives in terms of everything going live service, for example, and things like that, which isn't what we're seeing and isn't necessarily, that's definitely not my point of view on it. I think a whole load of different types of game make a lot of sense for Game Pass. But exactly as Jeff was saying, there's potentially types of games that don't make as much sense, and they might be things that are quite precious to people that have been gaming for a while. But
yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow, okay. Face, thank you so much for the $15 super chat. It says console sales are important to Microsoft because Game Pass is only on PC and console. If Microsoft wants to reach 2 billion gamers, Game Pass needs to be on every platform. You forgot mobile, but I take your point. I think Jeff also said that, mobiles, there's a little bit of resistance on that market, but that is really the big chunky piece of pie that Microsoft really wants. And that's the other negative. If this massive market of mobile players jumps on Game Pass, then maybe those good core games will go down the toilet to appease whoever the mobile market likes. I don't know. It's a catch-22. I'm guessing here. We are. So we've got a couple of topics. I'm just mindful of time. We've got about 20 minutes. PlayStation buys Evo. Before I go into Jeff, you made me crack up, and Dealer and all of.
Oh yeah, his tweet was hilarious. I saw that.
And Colt was creasing, and I just sent the tweet out. And buy anything.
Now messy.
What's the strategy, Cog? I have no idea. What is the strategy with Microsoft Sony buying Evo? It's a good thing, I guess. Maybe what? I don't know.
Guys, behave. This is not a reactionary move. This is not Jim Ryan waking up in the morning. As funny as it was, like, yo, Bethesda, buy something. I don't care what it is.
No, definitely not. Just a joke.
The tweet, it was golden. Jeff, it was golden. I was rolling. Yeah, now listen, man. I mean, for me, I'm going to touch on this on ILP or ILP podcast tomorrow. And this is actually my topic. I'm a huge fighting game guy. That's some of my core roots. I grew up with the Tekken, the Street Fighters, the Mortal Kombat, stuff like that. Evo is something that, again, I didn't even realize how in dire straits they were. I mean, obviously because of COVID, we know you can't really do game tournaments. We got that. But then I come to find out that they had like some type of scandal going on the following year, which really affected them. And look, it's just to me, it's something you see, Sony swoop in and kind of save something that was, pretty much in dire straits. And the fighting game community, it's a niche genre, but I like to see it alive, and Sony is, look, at the end of the day, this is not like exclusive. They already kind of outlined that, there still will be multi-platform competitions in the space, so things like Smash Brothers and all that other stuff is still going to exist at the Evo. But I just thought it was a good move. I'm sorry, what did you say, guys?
Sorry. Did they confirm that you can have?
Yes, that has been confirmed. Yeah, so it's not like you're just going to only see Sony fighting games. That's the thing now, kind of thing. To me, it's just more of a community-based thing, and they were in trouble. They needed the help. I guess it made sense for Sony at the time. And as a fighting game fan, it excites me. I don't want to see the genre go away, and I grew up watching those type of guys and speed kicks and these guys with the name. I'm a Tekken guy. I loved all this stuff. So, it's good to see it, go in that direction. No, it's not a reactionary move. And now, they're puffing their chest out. What you're going to do, Microsoft? You're up next. It's not that kind of situation. You know what I'm saying? But look.
Oh, it was hilarious.
It was fun. The timing was funny. I have to admit, the timing was hilarious. So all the jokes were definitely gold. I have to give you guys that.
No, but no, so you had some brilliant tweets. But and you also tweeted one of those iconic moments. Was it Ken vs. Daigo? That Street Fighter. Oh my God, his name now. I've watched a million times. That. You want to keep the legacy alive. At least that's positive. You don't want it to go by the wayside. I don't know how much of these controversies or things have caused. I didn't know EA. I know because of COVID cancellation probably wreaked havoc on them. But what do you think? Do you have an idea what Sony are thinking? I don't know.
Yeah, probably that Evo was cheap, and if it was at risk of going away, they don't want it to go away. I think that Cognito nails it when he says, like, as a fighting game fan, I am glad Sony did this. I think that is the perspective here. I was on Mooch's podcast last night, and I was just saying, like, but other than that, like, this is like, it doesn't do much for me, and it's like, it's a fine deal. They probably got it cheap, but it's not every game at Evo was already played on a PlayStation. And there's a lot of PlayStation branding already at Evo. This is just not going to change much with that stuff. And people are like, oh, Grub down playing Sony stuff again. Oh, no. And I'm just like, guys, okay, you're excited for it. Please explain why as a PlayStation fan. Like, I know most of you aren't fighting game fans. Don't pretend. I go to those Sony live streams on Twitch, the PlayStation live streams, where every week they're doing stuff with Mortal Kombat, and there's 50 people there watching it at most. And it's like, so you PlayStation fans aren't really showing up for a lot of these fighting games things. Just tell me why you're excited. If there's something exciting that I'm missing, I would love to hear it. And I just think for a lot of them, it is, they just want this to be like a big acquisition that means something bigger for PlayStation. And I don't think that's what it is. I think this is just PlayStation covering its bases, making sure that fighting games don't go away, or someone else steps in and they have to rebuild all those relationships. This is just PlayStation making a smart move to make sure that fighting games continue to have a really strong place on console. And from that point of view, it's great, but it's like mostly fighting game fans, I think, should be grateful that Sony did this and ensured that Evo will have a strong ownership and a strong partnership with a huge console brand, and it can continue going as it has, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cut that away. That is the main takeaway. Which is funny you say, though, because Face23 BKNY says, thank you so much for the $15 super chat. With Sony buying Evo, I can see a future where Sony buys Capcom. And that's not going to happen because I don't think they have the money. But forgive me if I am wrong there. I don't know. But I think primarily is what you've said, Jeff. There was probably a fat discount available for that price. And the brand association and just branding and fighting is a good fit. PlayStation and Evo are a much better fit than Nintendo and Evo or Xbox and Evo, in my opinion.
It's also people forget that it was only like 2 or 3 months ago that Microsoft bought Smash GG as well.
It's the same thing. Like, cool.
It's not massively different. Yeah, it's a cheap way to, like, esports is
marketing.
It's huge. It's growing. It's dark area we don't know that much about that we need to know more about, but it's a cheap way to stay in that kind of arena, I guess.
Sorry, you were saying, Jeff? That's cheap.
It's cheap. Like it's affordable.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, why not do it? But I just, if you are someone who's not a fighting game fan and you're looking at this like, what does this mean for me? I don't think it means much. It's not going to mean much for you. Like, and that's okay. Like that's not what they're not trying to do everything because they're trying to help you in your arguments on the internet. Like sometimes it's just a deal that just helps them out.
This is the response, Jeff. This is it. This is we ready.
It's the
Bang
start.
bang.
Number one, there's going to be more tomorrow.
There's going to be a lot more. There's someone tweeted that on the thing. This is the one. This is better than Bethesda.
I saw that.
Yeah, crazy. I think it's a lone tweet, but we've just blown it up for our amusement. £5 super chat from the Dodge that was downstairs.
The Dodge.
How you doing? Sorry, another mate. Dodge, what are you doing?
I love the live interactions in your house. It's hilarious. Continue.
Come to. It's a medic here.
Medic.
Yeah.
Hello. What's going on? Salute.
Media social distancing thing. We missed you, Jeff, when this with this acquisition of Xbox and Bethesda happened. And I don't know if you've seen. Do you even like my stuff, Jeff? The take on Bethesda's exclusivity.
No, don't insult me.
Your take on the Bethesda exclusivity issue. I watch your stuff and I agreed. I retweeted what you said. It seemed like this whole word "some" in the like temporarily for like 3 days caused a lot of grief and consternation for some people. But you were saying that it's still going to mean what a lot of Xbox gamers want it to mean. Do you still Starfield? What do you think is going to happen with that?
The way they spoke, I will be shocked if Starfield is on PlayStation 5. I would be shocked. I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility still, and that is that with caveat, unless there's a contract. If there is a contract for it to be on PlayStation, of course it'll be on PlayStation. But if there is no contract and they're just putting on PlayStation 5, it's like, okay, first of all, they are just prolonging this conversation. So it sounded like you said most games are going to be exclusive. So why not Starfield and why this other stuff? And people will say, well, $70, right? I'll pay $70 to play this on my PlayStation, and isn't that worth so much more to them, or isn't that worth a lot? And it's like they explained it. They did this to beef up Game Pass and to get you to subscribe to Game Pass wherever that is, and they're going to try to push you onto Game Pass. Like it's just that's the way it's going to go. So it maybe the one possibility here I could see is timed exclusivity, maybe, but even that I'm not convinced by at all. So. Yeah, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6. I guess the big question would be Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones probably does have some contractual obligations involved in like selling it as many places as it wants because that's what Lucasfilm would want. But I think beyond that, most I would expect to be exclusive to Game Pass.
See, Asa, where was Jeff when we were in a few shows where me and you were going back and forth? That's the strat.
But Jeff, how
here it comes.
That? No, I'm definitely not disagreeing with that. That's definitely the strategy. Yeah, there's no question. There's a couple of odd things about it. One is that on that, I think it was a Tuesday when they put out that some messaging, I'm not sure if that was reading the room to see how strong the reaction was, or if it was stirring the pot to make sure that there was a reaction. But
Good point,
either way,
Asa.
it's calculated.
Yeah, Tuesday was interesting. That Tuesday, I remember that. Verbal gymnastics in that post. A lot of, I felt like, not to cut you, I just felt like, I agree with you because when I read the initial post before the Thursday round table, when Phil made the definitive statement, Tuesday, I'm like, I've learned nothing than what I learned from when I first started when you guys announced it. So I'm with you on that. Continue. I just wanted to agree with you on that.
Come on, a few days they can't make such big decisions. No, you're saying they're throwing feelers out there.
No, I don't. If it's not that, then it's calculated and manipulative, in a sense. Not in a like they're a marketing team, so it's their job. So I'm not saying that as like, they're really evil. They shouldn't be doing that. It was very, very effective at stirring up conversation. Because the actual strategy of like contractual obligations and service games that are already out there are going to stay multi-platform, you could express that within the space of a tweet. It's not a difficult message, and they could have done it 6 months ago. And every other kind of studio acquisition has been that clear 6 months ago. There was a lot of speculation on this one, and that was born of Microsoft leaving it open.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, Jeff, before this happened, how confidently would you have called it one way or the other before that Tuesday?
Oh yeah, not. I was not confident. There were some people that I think that were doing a good job of convincing me. I think like Paris Lily was very convincing that it was like it made a lot of sense, and why would you spend $7.5 billion to keep things the same? But I was still being convinced, and I was trying not to like make up my mind one way or the other, because I'm like, well, I'll just wait and see what Microsoft says. So yeah, I could have gone either way, but now that they've said that's the strategy, it's very much like, well, of course it is. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But I wouldn't put it past them. And you're right, like marketing teams are always trying to manipulate us, and one of the best ways to do that these days is to excuse me, word things in such a way that it becomes a firestorm on social media. If you want to make a big deal out of the fact that things are mostly only going to be on Game Pass, and you want to make sure that is a talking point that gets driven into people's heads, yeah, make it something that becomes controversial and something that's easy to argue about on every single podcast, week after week, forever. And maybe they played us really well that way. I do think I will say that when I try to assess Phil Spencer as a person, though, he does seem like the kind of guy who's like, well, let's be very thorough here. Let's try to say exactly what we mean, and maybe there will be a game one day that's like going to be free to play that we're going to want to put on PlayStation, and it won't be that big a deal. So like, I'm keeping that in mind when I'm speaking. He seems like that kind of guy, but that's not necessarily like what happens when you write a blog post, though. Right. When you write a blog post, a lot of people get involved, even if it is Phil Spencer's name.
Correct.
On it. So I wouldn't be surprised if marketing was like, hey, let's just use the word some, and that's a very vague word. You can like, there are people out there trying to say like, oh, some games are coming. Like, when you say like, oh yeah, like someday, well, that someday is definitely going to happen. Or like, there's just, I'm going to have some dinner. Well, you're having dinner, but you're not just having like some part of the dinner. You're saying, I'm going to have some dinner. Like that, maybe that's like, that word can mean those things. So it's like, if they're thinking about it that cleverly, that's impressive, but I wouldn't also put it past them. I don't know, but either way, it did get us talking. So if that's what they're trying to do, it worked.
Yeah, go, guys. Me and Jeff are on exactly the same page, so you sit yourself back down.
Tell them. Get them.
And the fun came
Talk
in.
to them.
There was verbal diarrhea on the website where you were just saying Fallout, everything was coming. So
this is in Guy's defense. This is his revenge, because I was here last time when this topic came up, and you kind of was not on that side that it was going to be exclusive, and Gaz was digging in. So I got to give Gaz this one. You got to give him his victory lap.
Cog, you've missed it.
So much for saying it. That's exactly what happened. We're not going to discuss this anymore.
I'm just stirring the pot between you two. You know, I love you guys.
Don't disclaimer that. Lord Rothfuss, thank you so much for the £5 super chat. Here's the some comment was Phil saving the news for the roundtable. Basically stirring the pot. Yeah, absolutely. Gamer O'Malley, thank you so much for the £2 super chat. It goes 530 days since Xbox last AAA exclusive threat. How? Ooh, and he's got a picture of Vince McMahon walking in the stage, and that's a very, very decisive comment. I think I missed someone's super chat. I don't know where. Sorry, my apologies if I have. But yeah, the games are coming, man. Like what do you think these studios are working on? You can just roll. I'm not gonna. You almost had me, but the super chat got me. The games are there. The games are coming. Let's just talk about. Oh, actually, Cog, do you think Starfield will be exclusive?
Yeah, I mean, according to the language, right? If we look at the language, it's not a legacy title. It doesn't considered a new IP. We did hear that at one point. There was Sony was trying to get exclusivity for it, and now that it's underneath the ZeniMax Microsoft acquisition, I intend this to be exclusive. That's the one I'm kind of the least concerned about. My issue was more so like the tried and true franchise. The reason why I was so upset, that's why I'm glad Asa brought up the Tuesday thing, because when they said the sum and the legacy and the contractual, I'm like, well, at first I was like, well, does the Elder Scrolls 6 fall under that? Does Fallout 5? Well, to me, those are the titles where you have the casual gamer who is not invested in the next generation ecosystem, and they're like, look, all I care about is this game, right? I need to know where I can play it. So the reason why I was upset initially was like, if you just don't come out and say what the hell these games are going to go, that's what got me upset. But now, again, when Phil comes out, he makes the statement, where Game Pass exists. That is more clear to me. And then when I look at shout out to Rand who's in there, like legacy titles, shout out to the cops, go, Mike, you gonna hear the siren in a minute. Sorry guys, I live next to a firehouse. But the thing is, like, when you hear legacy titles, right? And people were like, see, legacy, that means Fallout, no, it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? So again, now we're getting more clarity. So to me, Starfield really is not the issue. I would be very shocked if it was that. To me, I'm more confident that that's going to be exclusive. And when we get to the Elder Scrolls 6, the Fallout 5s, I think on that case-by-case basis, definitively, when they say those are exclusive, it's gonna reverberate. It's really gonna have a lot of weight, and people are gonna say, okay, wow, I need to invest in the Xbox platform now. I need to invest in the ecosystem. And I think for some that are non-gamers, because gamers go where the games are, for some, that's going to be a shock. That's going to hurt some people that have already made predetermined things that they would never buy an Xbox console and all this other foolishness. Because again, if you're a gamer, you go where the games are. When Ghost of Tsushima came out, I'm over there. When Final Fantasy VII, I'm over there on PlayStation. There's some experiences I'm not going to miss out, and I'm not going to try to diminish Bethesda all of a sudden because now it's not on the platform of my choice. So that's what it is right now. I think ultimately, Phil and those guys did a fantastic roundtable on Thursday. I thought Pete Hines was amazing. I thought he spoke to the player because he got Aaron and them to break out of the corporate space. He's like, Aaron, come on now, stop dancing. You know what I'm saying? Phil, the people want to know what's going on. Like, I love that. It was a great show. It was Thursday's roundtable. Really, they knocked it out the park. And last point I'll say, it was good to see, because of the pandemic, all of them in a physical space talking together. I thought that was cool too. So
that was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice to see, although we're still maintaining social distance, other than they should release pictures of them standing next to each other. Yeah. So, like, you're doing this for posterity's sake. Asa, before we misconstrue what you say, what's happening with Starfield? Will it be exclusive?
That's exactly what Jeff has said. Sorry, I was just typing in the chat. That's exactly what Jeff has said. Like, their intent for games going forwards is clear as can be now. They've established exactly what they're going to do. Starfield, it's possible that Sony have already got a deal in place where their collector's edition comes with a PlayStation pin, so the game's got to exist on PlayStation or something silly like that. You can't rule out, just because of the timescale, the time frame of when it's coming out, you can't rule out a contract being in place. But
I agree with you there. I think that's like because of how close it's supposed to be released. Those contractual obligations might spill in. Jeff, there's articles everywhere about you saying Starfield will be revealed this summer and a late 2021 release. How do you know this stuff? Tell us when it's coming out. What is the game about? How long is the game?
Let's talk about how many weapons are in the game first. Let's do that, and then I'll get to how many levels. Look, my understanding is that this is a game that everyone at Microsoft was very excited to get because they thought it could help fill in their release calendar, and the hope is it could do that relatively soon. I think when they go into this E3, Microsoft's not going to have a lot of big surprises. They've played a lot of their cards that they can right now, and so at the E3 show that's coming up that they're putting together right now, Microsoft proper is going to have a handful of stuff that's like, okay, here's some updates. A lot of these games are still pretty far away. A lot of the companies we acquired in 2018 and 2019, y'all, they were just finishing other stuff. So yeah, they're still reloading. They're still making other games, but they're still coming. And so here is a lot about Halo, and then here is maybe Forza. So then, okay, that's okay. But if Bethesda can have Starfield, and I think it's likely it's leaning that way, they'll show it. They'll show it at E3 if they can. And then whether or not that means it comes out this fall, I think they want to do the Fallout 4 release plan. I think they want to do the 6 months from a reveal. We have this game out in that world. It has worked really well for them multiple times now. But COVID's still an issue, and work remote's still an issue. I think the one hope here is that vaccines have really, really ramped up here in the United States to the point where, like, I might even assume that, like, them standing next to each other in that round table, I think Phil Spencer probably has had his vaccine. I would think maybe. Yeah. But even if he hasn't, I just signed up for mine, and I think I'll probably be getting mine soon. I think by this fall, most people working on games will probably have had their vaccines as well, and they'll be able to get back in the office if they need to finish these games. That said, still lots of complications that could still pop up, And just because they want to do something, just because the hope is, oh, all right, Bethesda's here, they're going to help us fill out our fall release and have us have Halo and Starfield as this big, booming holiday timeframe game release schedule. Doesn't mean it's going to work out that way. And maybe instead they have to push it into early next year, or maybe later. But my understanding is the hope is reveal it this summer and release it, sometime pretty soon after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. COVID is still a thing, man. I know we're kind of, thankfully, seems like the vaccination stuff is making us sure that there's a light at the end of this really horrible long tunnel. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't, and I don't want to put you in the spot there. Say, are you given this declaration? It's happening because COVID is the thing that, Halo got delayed very last minute. So, never could happen with Starfield. I was going to say Elden Ring. You know more about this game than the developers do. What is this game?
Give us that exclusive, Jeff. Let's go.
What is this game? I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never heard of this.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead. What's your question?
My question is going to be, one, I don't understand where this whole Jeff Grubb Elden Ring thing actually came about. What is the story behind that, by the way?
I don't even really know myself, but I think I said I was confident before a show, and then the next day when I found out that it wasn't going to be there, I said I'm pessimistic about it. But they only really focused on the confident thing, as if that was like some great insight. And then it's like I really started learning more stuff after that point. But it built up to like anything I said about Elden Ring at all. They were hooking onto, and it's like I like didn't realize that for a long time. It took me like months to realize like, oh, our Elden Ring is like posting memes about you every single day. I'm like, okay, damn. And so now, like when I started like looking at it, it's like, oh shit, okay, so this is like gone really sideways on me. But yeah, I saw that trailer, the leaked trailer, a couple weeks, maybe about a month before it got leaked. And okay. When I was seeing that, I was also hearing some stuff about like its time, the release time frame, and some of its development history, and some of the issues that were happening with COVID. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of what I've heard. And I would say that on my podcast, and then of course that would become stories and become posts on our Elden Ring. But it just got out of hand to the point where I'm like, I need to just like hit the ejector seat on this thing and let these people like deal with it themselves. They need to like find somebody else. So it was a wild ride, and honestly, for the most part, a lot of really nice people in the Elden Ring community. And there's some people who are obsessives, and even they often were very nice. Just a handful of people who are like, kind of shitty about it. But for the most part, it was just a bunch of nice people who really want to play a game that they're looking forward to, and I can relate to that. So I hope they get a lot more information soon. I'm rooting for him, but just go ask someone else.
Nah, I'm here for Jeff. This is exclusive.
No.
You need to be the face. You're the face of the game.
The face. He's the face.
They need to put a Jeff Grubb NPC there. I would sign that ASAP. That would be amazing. We're gonna wrap up the show. We've hit an hour and a half mark. Before we do that, I want to talk about, just get your opinion on this, Jeff. I hope we can have you on again. You're always lovely.
Please.
Please do come in. And same with you, Cog. Can't wait to meet you guys when this COVID stuff.
Facts. You already know.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be
amazing. But like one question I like to ask, because we're at the start of this generation, and it'd be good to one day look back at what people thought would be what they thought would end up being the end of the generation. So if I was going to ask you, Cog, if I were to say, it's a very broad question, so forgive me, but what will the gaming landscape look like at the end of the generation?
Wow, that's a tough one. Oh, man.
You'll still be playing Destiny, that's the answer.
Yeah, I'll be playing Destiny regardless. That hasn't changed for 6 years. But they cloud me for that. But no, seriously, I mean, look, this is exciting, man. We're in this. I kind of feel like it's a transitionary phase in a gen. These consoles are extremely powerful. I love the tech that we're hearing. In reference to your prior topic. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but in terms of like, developers coming out and saying, hey, the tools are maturing and things like that. So I'm excited more on a technical level, just the potential of what these consoles can do, and machine learning and all these cool technical terms. And look, I came from the last generation then I went to PC, and so experiencing NVMe and all these great things in PC gaming, and now coming back to console where they're more powerful than my current setup, it's kind of refreshing. You know what I mean? So combine that with great software. We see from, like I said, we talked about the 3 different philosophies from Xbox. I'm excited to see them invest in studios, and I can see this cadence of like maybe every quarter 2 to 3 quality games with this new model they're doing, and just that plethora. So I'm excited for Xbox in that. Like I said earlier with PlayStation, those quality first party titles, continuing that formula, seeing that how that holds up. I think, like I said, it's going to be extremely competitive. I don't know what's going to happen per se with that, because it's a tough one. Let's just say, does Microsoft have quality? Does, like what Asa said, like does it get to that point of saturation where you have to tell people, hey, no, not in Game Pass right now because we've got so much, so we've got that answer. Like Asa said, Nintendo, please put out a Pro, please do something with that fidelity. That's all I'm saying. Because as COVID has hit my Switch, I'm using it less because I used to go on the go with it all the time and travel with it. So now that it's home, I'm not choosing that over my PlayStation 5 unless it's an exclusive. Unless it is an exclusive game that I really want to play, I'm not choosing that. So at the end of the day, I think Microsoft's in great position. I want to see them keep up the quality of the games in Game Pass. That's my main thing, the quality of the game. And they need, what they need, guys? They need to stop a lot of the naysayers. They need that 90 Metacritic first-party game that people go, oh, okay. Because I think that's a lot of the Sony fan base's, contention with it. It's like, oh, that game's not for me. And even though their overall strategy is diverse and it will do well for them, a lot of them want the bangers that, that 90. So now it's well revered. Okay, I got to have this game. And then with Sony, just continue to do what they do as long as their quality doesn't drop. And as long as they don't get overwhelmed by Game Pass, you know what I'm saying, as far as just pure volume, right? Then they should be fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a great gen regard. I think this kind of reminds me of Xbox in their 360 bag, Sony still in their bag. Like, it's going to be fun, man. Buckle up. The gloves are on, man. It's going to be a great one.
It's going to be sauce in this generation. Got me hyped.
Yeah, sauce, mad sauce, always.
Mad sauce, all
mad
the
sauce.
way. Jeff, do you echo his sentiments? Do you think it's going to be close?
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to be a generation where we look back and we are going to have a real infatuation with this hardware, with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and probably even the Series S to a certain point. But we're going to look back on what Microsoft and Sony are doing specifically to say they really nailed the hardware and made it really nice to play whatever games I wanted. Whenever there was a game on their systems and I sat down to play it, it ran well, it looked good. The loading times were really low. It was just a nice, smooth experience, and it's going to be a pretty harsh comparison to the PS4 and the Xbox One, where those systems are going to age really poorly, and they're going to look pretty bad in comparison, where we're just not going to have a lot of fond memories for those systems, just because the hardware really kind of was pretty shoddy out of the gate. And so it's going to be nice to have a long generation with hardware that is really good. And then I think that in terms of how things might change, what we'll look back on and say, wow, that was pretty wild. I think that for the most part, these companies are going to just keep going down the path that they're on, and I think it's going to continue to work for them. I do think that we'll be surprised by the next sort of like Minecraft or the next Fortnite. There's going to be another game that pops out of nowhere on like Steam Early Access and takes over the world. That'll continue to happen. I think the interesting thing is, like, can Game Pass create that sort of thing? Can Game Pass create the next Minecraft? Or is it going to have to continue happening elsewhere? Can any of the consoles really create that? Or is it usually going to be where it usually is, and it's going to be on Steam Early Access? And then I do think that we'll have to see what Nintendo's going to do with how it decides to change up. Because I do think that they are looking at PS Plus, and they're looking at Game Pass, and they're seeing how both those companies are able to continue their revenue through generations without having to miss a beat. And Nintendo has never really pulled that off before. Do we see Nintendo shift to an iterative model where this next Switch Pro is actually quite a jump forward, because they're just going to keep releasing better Switches over time? Is that something they're going to do? We'll find that out by the end of this generation and know for sure. And if they don't, well, what's the next sort of gimmick that they're going to try to win us over with? And will it be something that we care about, or is it going to be another play for the very, very mainstream? And whether or not they still have the appetite to do that, I'll be curious to find out. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. Gonna be a lot to talk about. But mostly, I'm just like, I think gaming's in a really good place right now, and I don't expect my feelings to like change about that in the next several years. I'm gonna look back and be like, yeah, gaming was really good in 2021, and hopefully it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, I hope so too. And it's a very good point about Nintendo. I have no, they could go loads of different ways. It's a very Nintendo's a Nintendo. They lead everything. No, absolutely, excellently well put and just resoundingly positive, because that's what the state of the industry looks like. So yeah, no, absolutely. Before I go into Asa's musings on this, and no doubt he will put a damper. No, I'm just kidding.
Damn.
No, bring it down, Asa. I want you to.
I can't.
God, sorry. You're such a
no, I can't. I'm too positive to bring anything down. I see end of this generation, there's either going to be 500 million Switches with people using it to play Game Pass, or Nintendo will come out with like a new console you have to dance to control or something, because who knows, they're Nintendo, they do what they want. What else? Sony will pull out and just become a PSVR only. They're going to have 10 million people with PSVRs, and they're going to sell them like 800 quid a game. That'll be Sony. Microsoft are going to sell so much Game Pass that the whole of Azure crumbles and nobody has email anymore. It's going to be the start of the apocalypse. This gen.
Oh, God, you missed
Did I
it.
bring it down enough? Apocalypse?
Yeah. There goes my serotonin level. Thank you for regulating that. Before we go out, guys, I want to read the super chat. Thank you so much. My dream will be Battlefield 6 on Game Pass. Oh my God. Well, EA and Microsoft are in bed together, and EA players on there. That could be a massive move. It would be a massive move. But yeah, absolutely. Lord Ruffness, thank you for the £5 super chat. So his guess is Sony will be in the bushes at the end of this gen. Damn. Not saying anything on that.
Ruffness coming with it.
Faisal, thank you so much for the £5 super chat, because I think contractual obligations in Bethesda's cases are those timed exclusive games already announced for Sony by Sony, although they didn't expressly say that, so I don't know if that's just the case, but yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. Everyone in chat, you've been lovely. Hey Mav, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Before we say goodbye, gentlemen, Jeff, you know, everyone knows where you are. L'Oreal adverts here and there, but where can people find you?
No, yeah, I'm actually going with Garnier Fructis next. So leaving L'Oreal behind.
Shout out to Garnier.
Yeah, shout out. Get me on Twitter at Jeff Grubb. I always warn people I tweet too much, so just if you don't like that, please don't follow me. I swear, please don't, because I can't change. I do not have the mental capacity to change myself to tweet less. But that's where you can always find my stuff, is on twitter.com/Jeff Grubb. But I also got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. Doing the podcast live on Friday afternoons, at least in US time. And then I've been doing a show about the game mess, where I tell people what's happening with events that are coming up, some news, discuss some of the headlines there. And I started that in the last couple of weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. Got a lot of good response to that. So yeah, check that out as well, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. That's me.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and thank you so much, Isla, as always, for linking Jeff's stuff in the chat below. And I have watched the game; it's just brilliant. Lord Cognito, you're on tomorrow, but we always love having you here. Thank you so much for tag teaming with me against Asa on that point. I love you so much for that. Great. Can tell people where they can find you, sir, and what's in store in the future for IOP? Because I know there's some things in the works.
We got some stuff good. Before I get into that, I definitely want to shout out for having me, and salute to Jeff, man. I'm glad to podcast with him. Love the content. Great thoughts and perspective. So it was a pleasure to do that. So when Gaz threw up the bat signal, I had to come. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good one. Asa, always love, man. Love your perspective. Even though Gaz gives you a laugh, you bring the level down. You know what I'm saying?
We like you more, Asa. We're on Team Asa here. Sorry.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So Asa, I love it. It's a perfect yin to the yang situation with you too. And I always love being here when I get the time. But as you know, man, at Lord Cognito on Twitter, I Lord Podcast on YouTube. Every Sunday is the Lord's Day. We will have assemble up and coming content creator, kind of in the space of just gaming and pop culture and other stuff like that. So we'll talk gaming, the whole gaming history, have some fun with it, and some good topics. And then, yeah, man, I obviously Last Word is our Destiny podcast, which we do on Friday. So if you're into that, you want to know what's going on about Destiny, my brother Ebontis, we do that every Friday. And of course, lordsofgaming.net. I really appreciate the support. You guys have been really supportive with the articles. Obviously, we had with Jason Ronald and that kind of stuff with the, him coming on and ACG and stuff like that. The support has been tremendous. So really appreciate you guys. See a lot of guys in the chat showing love. So definitely appreciate y'all. And that's it, man. But we got some fun stuff cooking. We got some sauce cooking for the next couple of months. So stay tuned. The Lord's Day gonna be fun. That's all I guess. I want to jinx too much, but we've got some really cool things. And I also got to hit up Jeff and Asa. You still got to come on and got to get you in the guys in the realm as well. So
yep, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you everyone in chat. We love you all as well. Gents, thank you so much for making the show. And Jeff, I know you've been doing a multitude of shows out there.
Genuine nap.
Yeah, go sleep, and thank you so much. And thank you, both of you, Jen. Asa, if you want to do the outros, or should I just butcher it?
Sure. I've heard a lot that I'm bringing you down and I'm an anchor, and it was getting pretty close to despair, and then Jeff's support has just saved me from that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you be you.
You're a realist. I call you the realist. It's not a pessimist. It's a realist.
I jest.
Yeah, I know. It's all good. It's all good. Everyone here, all good. Chat, all good. Been a good time, and we'll see you next week.